Welcome back to another Langmuir Systems CrossFire assembly video. In the last video, we installed the slat bed on the machine, and in this video, we'll be installing the motors and lead screws. Let's take a look at the parts and tools that are needed. You'll need the Y-axis stepper motor, the X-axis stepper motor, the Y-axis lead screw, the X-axis lead screw, the Y-axis stepper motor mount, the Y-axis lead screw bearing mount, and you'll need bag number 5, Y-axis motor hardware, bag number 6, X-axis motor hardware, bag number 7, Y-axis bearing hardware, bag number 8, X-axis bearing hardware, bag number 9, lead nut hardware, and bag number 13, lead screw couplers. For tools, you'll need a 3/32 Allen wrench, 9/64 Allen wrench, 5/32 Allen wrench, and 3/16 Allen wrench. You'll also need 2 9/16 box wrenches. The next step is to remove the lead nuts from bag number 9 and screw them onto each of the lead screws with the flange going on first and screwing it on just a couple of inches. So do that for both. Next, remove the lead screw couplers from bag number 13. There's 2 different types of couplers. There's the motor side coupler, and then there's the lead screw bearing coupler. Each of these requires 2 set screws, so we're going to install those now. There's 2 set screws in bag number 5, bag number 6, bag number 7, and bag number 8. We're just going to screw these in a couple of turns. Make sure that the set screws don't protrude into the opening. Next, I'll be removing these 2 bolts. This is an optional step, but it gives you a little bit more clearance for your hands to install the screws that secure the lead screw mount and the stepper motor mount. Next, take the Y-axis stepper motor mount and the 2 largest cap screws from bag number 5. You'll notice that the Y-axis stepper motor mount is symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which way this gets installed. You'll also need the 3/16 Allen wrench to install these screws. The Y-axis stepper motor mount attaches to the backside stanchion plate using the small bolt pattern. The cap screws are inserted through the holes on the inside of the upper rail. These holes are used for tool access. Let's take a closer look. Hold the screw in one hand and the Allen wrench in the other. Install the screw into the tube and pass the Allen wrench through the tool clearance hole until it engages the screw. Next, push the screw through the stanchion plate on the opposing side. Take the motor mount and screw the screw into it. Keep this hand tight for now. Install the second screw in identical fashion. Next, you'll need the Y-axis lead screw bearing mount and the 2 largest cap screws in bag number 7. The Y-axis lead screw bearing mount gets installed in identical fashion, except it's installed on the opposite end of the rail. You'll notice that there's a counterbore on one side of the bearing mount. Make sure that this counterbore is facing outward. Let's take a closer look. Just like with the stepper motor mount, I'm only going to hand tighten these cap screws for now. Make sure that the counterbore is facing outboard. Now, before I can fully tighten these screws, I need to make sure that the mounts are perpendicular to the axis of the rail. You may elect to use a tool such as a protractor to help with this step, but typically visually aligning each mount is sufficient. So I'll do that now. With the mounts visually aligned, I can go ahead and tighten these screws. Next, you can reinstall the bolts that were previously removed. Next, we'll be installing the ball bearings onto each one of the lead screw adapters. I'll start with the Y-axis first. Remove the bearing and slide it onto the shoulder of one of the adapters. Then remove the small cap screw that has Loctite on the threads, and also the washer in the bag. Screw this into the end of the lead screw adapter. Now you may find that it's helpful to use one of the other Allen wrenches to hold the lead screw adapter while you tighten this bolt. So just install it into the set screw that was previously inserted. And I'll do the same for the other adapter. Now to install these into the lead screw bearing mounts on the machine, you'll need each of the cap screws in bag number 7 and bag number 8. So we'll install the Y-axis bearing first on the machine. Install the assembly into the Y-axis lead screw bearing mount. Then insert the 2 cap screws into the threaded holes and tighten them to restrain the bearing into the mount. Next, we'll do the same for the X-axis bearing mount. Now we can begin installing the lead screws, and we'll install the Y-axis first, which is the longer of the 2 lead screws. First, push the carriage along the rail until it butts up against the stanchion plates on the stepper motor side. Then take the lead screw, pass the end through the lead nut mounting flange, through the stepper motor mount, until the lead nut can go past the bearing block assembly. Then pull the carriage back with the lead screw until the end of the lead screw can be inserted into the lead screw adapter. Now it's important that the lead screw bottoms out in the lead screw adapter, and if you can feel that it isn't, it's likely due to the fact that the set screws are probably protruding into the opening, so you may need to back those out. Next, you'll need one of the lead screw couplers, the Y-axis stepper motor, and the Y-axis motor hardware, which is in bag number 5. First, position the motor and make sure that the shaft on the motor doesn't come into contact with the end of the lead screw. Now, if you don't have a gap between the lead screw and the shaft of the motor, there's a good chance that you need to go back to the opposite end and make sure that the lead screw is inserted all the way into the lead screw adapter. We have a gap, so we're good and we can move forward. Now I can install the coupler, the stepper motor coupler, onto the end of the lead screw. On the coupler, there's a big end and a small end. The big end goes onto the lead screw. And I need to make sure to insert it fully onto the lead screw. I'm also going to tighten the set screw at this time. Now I can install the motor. You want to make sure that the cable of the motor is pointing downwards when you install this. So and I also make sure that the shaft of the motor inserts into the coupler. Then I use the 4 cap screws from bag 5 to secure the motor to the mount. With the motor on, I can tighten the second set screw on the coupler. Now all that's left to do is tighten the 2 set screws on the lead screw coupler at the opposite end. Now I can install the X-axis lead screw. Position the X-axis carriage so that it butts up against the bolt that holds the gantry tube to the carriage. Next, insert the end of the lead screw through the lead nut mounting flange, through the stepper motor mount, and then into the lead nut adapter. Again, make sure that the lead screw inserts all the way into the coupler, and don't be afraid to put a little force on it to make sure that it's in there all the way. With that in, I can install the stepper motor and the coupler and tighten all the set screws like I did on the Y-axis. That wraps up installation of the motors and lead screws, and in the next video we'll be installing the torch mount, the tube caps, and the cable support tube. Thanks for watching.